get them involved from day one. When you have impact, you impact your bottom line. So they make that choice right at the beginning to say, I'm going to make less money to have a social return on investment. So in business, we talk about return on investment. In social enterprise, we talk about SROI, social return on investment. And when we're working with our entrepreneurs here at Pillar, we're with them as they embed that model right throughout. So here at Pillar, what we do is we work with the not-for-profit sector and the charity sector to empower them and strengthen them. In the social enterprise cluster, we call our departments clusters. In our cluster, we work with social enterprises to help them embed and then help them grow and be sustainable and get to launch and get to out of idea stage. So who's business advisors or business coaches? Okay, most of you. Any entrepreneurs before I make too many fun of people? Okay. So as entrepreneurs and coaches that ideas are the currency. I'm sure you encounter people who, I have the greatest idea. I have a list of 50 ideas. They're all so great. We're going to change the world. We're going to rock it. We got every idea. So after a little while, I get jaded. I don't know about you. I'm a glass half full person, but I'm just a tiny bit jaded now about what exactly is in the entrepreneurial cup. So we have to work past idea stage. Social entrepreneurs have that same thing that regular business entrepreneurs have, getting past idea to launch, and it's really hard. But while they're going through, they have a sense of urgency. If I don't do this, someone's going to be harmed. Somebody's going to suffer. So that we get this sense of urgency. So trying to get entrepreneurs into traditional business support, sometimes we lose social entrepreneurs. They take a little detour because they think this takes too long. You want me to do what? A business plan? Like, that's like 3 months of work. If I don't do this now, X, Y, Z, it's going to happen. So we're getting a little bit of a different twist on our entrepreneurs here. So supporting them through that urgency and really trying to get them to traditional business supports because they need a plan like everybody else. So the definition of social enterprise is doing well by doing good. Remember I said my husband doesn't get it? Why don't you go make more money? That's doing well. But when I do a business, I want to do good at the same time that I'm doing well. So that's our easiest, simplest definition. Social enterprises use business strategies to achieve a social or environmental good or impact. So they can be nonprofit. We'll talk about this more. They can be a cooperative. And I would say 90% of ours are a for-profit corporation or a for-profit business. They want to maximize revenue and maximize impact at the same time. They're unique, but they're not really exclusive from business. We had tours last night, and Paul from Pathways said, you're a business, act like it. And that is what we're trying to convey to our social entrepreneurs, is this idea that, yeah, you're running a business, you can't work for $15,000 a year. It's not sustainable, and you need to have good business practices. So that's where coaches and advisors social and or environmental mission in their governing documents. So in a corporate business, your governing documents say make money. In a social enterprise, it's mission-based. So it says we want to reduce carbon emissions. We want to hire 50 people with barriers a year. We want to put 1,000 people to work every year. There's a difference there. They generate the majority of their income through trade, so not grants. They're making a business and making money and not dependent on grants or donations, although in some cases they may still access those. They reinvest majority of profits. This doesn't mean, so if you have an agency that donates 10%, that's okay. It says here 50, that's an embedded model. So where all the money goes in to kind of help all those mission-based objects that they're doing. They're accountable, radically transparent, not afraid to tell people what they're earning, and autonomous of state, so they're not government agencies. When we meet an entrepreneur, social entrepreneur, if you're trying to figure out if you have a social entrepreneur, we ask, do they intend to do good? And then the second question is, well, do they actually do good? Because road to hell is paved with good intent, right? And lots of people intend to do stuff really well, but they fall through somewhere in the cracks. So do they intend to do good? Do they do good? And can they measure it? So tell me the good you did. So what does that look like when you report to somebody? Is it a marketing piece? Okay, but you're going to have to prove it. We'll hear from Karen later in storytelling. You need some proof. You can say, I fed everybody in Lambton County. You know what? Somebody's going to challenge me on that someday. And I have to be able to prove that. When we have yes to all of those, we're pretty comfortable at that point that we've got a social enterprise or somebody who wants to be. I have a checklist, and I'll link you right through to it. So the checklist here is basically a walkthrough checklist. So when we met with our local partners, we said, what do you need? And they said a checklist. So we created one. Yeah, we listened, yay. So, and what else, what is social enterprise? Like, who knows? Like, who cares? What is it doing? So we got a definition, and then this list. So this list is the intent, do they actually, can you measure it? If you do launch, who benefits? So with a business, who benefits? The entrepreneur, right, or the organization. With a social enterprise, it's something external. So their agency might benefit, or a group might benefit, or maybe the environment is the focus. It's not the entrepreneur themselves. Question?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when this comes to a for-profit organization,
yes.
How do you define when there is profit being made and an individual is making money?
Yep.
How do you make the differentiation of that?
Yeah. So in BC, there are multi-million-dollar social enterprises. The definition, the clearer line. Did you all hear Annette's question? No. Okay. So she said, in a for-profit social enterprise, where's the line? Because those people are making money. Where's the line kind of between too much money, essentially?
I wouldn't even say too much money.
Okay, just making any money.
Like,
yeah, okay. We want social enterprises to make money.
Then if you're going to say how much money, you got to draw a line.
That's right. I would say, and there's no clear definition of social enterprise. We don't have an actual working thing where you can just go to a government website and they're like, yeah, it's a social enterprise. So when it comes to making money, your entrepreneur would set their goal for their mission. Our mission is to put 1,000 people to work every year. I always establish a living wage, and a living wage is minimum $60,000, because it's great that people think they can live on 20 or 30 or 40, but it's that you can't. And for all of us in charity work, that live on substandard, we're the exception to that. But entrepreneurs, they need something to keep them going, right? It's hard. So a living wage, which can go up, and then their mission. So as they earn more money, like any entrepreneur, they need to reap those benefits, but still meet their mission target. So if your entrepreneur is suddenly making like $500,000 a year and their mission went from 1,000 people, now they're helping 50, they might have lost sight of what their social enterprise is.
But what if their business is profitable and they still are
Absolutely.
1,000 people?
If they're working towards that goal, is their intent to do good? Do they do good? Can they measure it?
But let's say they get to the $500,000.
Yep.
Are they then obligated to adjust
No.
their mission?
Not at all. I would say if it's a true social enterprise, they will adjust mission because they're trying to prevent suffering. And so they'll say, oh, look at the money we've made. Let's invest this much more into our impact model. So goodwill.
So who's monitoring all that?
That's the agency. That's the entrepreneur. Goodwill's a good example. Yeah, okay. So you've probably seen that thing that goes around on Facebook about, oh, be careful who you donate to. Goodwill, the CEO okay, that's not true. Typically by money, and they are incentivized, where something intrinsic in social entrepreneurs are incentivized by meeting that mission target. I say to our people, if you don't pay yourself well or reasonably, then all the good work you do is gone. So if we're not fair in paying them, then maybe Ben and Jerry's is going to come and snatch them up, and then their mission's gone.
Well, I'm not debating whether it's fair. It's who defines what fair is or what's reasonable.
Up to the agency.
So that's a tough one.
Yeah. As a community, we want to see impact going on and no dependency on donations. So if I see an agency like Goodwill that's getting people to work without needing continual fundraising from the community, I'm good with that. And that's up, I guess, to the individual.
I'm not
Yeah.
good with it either.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out what the definition is.
I know,
because
it's hard.
Us as business analysts who have to try to figure out what that is.
Yeah.
It's not a
Intent, it's not a real, you're right.
I'm calling on you, Meg.
I know, send them. I'll talk to them. Andre, do you have anything to?
I just think these questions are on a high level.
Mhm.
What you want to explore, it's very high level.
Yeah.
Is there intent, is there mission, and is there measurables?
Well, I'm thinking of one young girl that I'm working in
Mhm.
particular. So she is separated out part of her business. So
Ah.
how does that work? So she is a young fashion designer, and
Yep.
she has, I would say, social enterprise embedded
Yeah.
in her value.
Though is twice the bookkeeping, twice the government oversight, major annoyances in dealing with all the different regulatory agencies in both of those pieces. If there's a way to embed it in, it makes it a little easier. I'm going to pull up a different link for you here. Yeah, absolutely.
Just wondering about looking at the embedded, the baked in embedded part.
Yeah.
Are you, in your business, would you be up to more, I'm gonna call it scrutiny? Because maybe people are really, depending on what kind of
Possibly.
business you have, especially if it's something of a high profile, would you seem to maybe put yourself up for more eyes watching that you are? Whereas when you're just donating part of it,
Yeah.
that's just, okay, well, they donated 25% of the sales, so
Right.
it doesn't matter what else they did.
Yeah. Did you hear the question? So are you under more scrutiny if you are a social enterprise? Are people watching you to see that you really do what you say? The answer is maybe. If you're using it as a marketing piece, so you are using this to say, hey, we're a social enterprise because that's the buzzword, we do all of these things, your entrepreneur will be challenged on that. They need to back that up with fact. But on that flip side, if you're just donating 20%, not just, but that's a lot. If you're donating 25%, actually you're going to be challenged on that too. We're in the world of cynics and skeptics. They will challenge, be prepared. I say to every one of your entrepreneurs, be prepared to be challenged on that every time. In my experience, the organizations that are truly deeply embedded get challenged less than the ones that do the donation. Because donations are just a really clear line item on your tax returns that are available that you can find. Whereas the embedded model, it takes an explanation. And so when you walk through the environmental impact, let's say someone has, then people get a light bulb moment. Oh, wow, okay, I didn't realize that you're hiring people with barriers, that you're keeping batteries out of landfills, that you're recycling, you have a completely green facility. You can list those things and create that story, which we'll hear about more. I keep pumping the storytelling, but it's just a really key piece. I pulled up on the, up here at tiny font, business model continuum. So I'll walk you through this. And we have a for-profit business all the way through to a charity. So a for-profit business, bottom line, making dollars for the shareholders. We're going to come back to this in a little while. On the other end, we have charity, only dependent on donations and government, does not earn revenue at all. We have corporate social responsibility. So if you think a bank like TD, and TD does Friends of the Environment Fund, but their bottom line is still make money for shareholders. But they have this program because they want to be good citizens. So they have Friends of the Environment, among other things. And so they have that there. However, the minute that the shareholder profit is impacted by TD Friends of the Environment, the program is gone. And that's regulatory. They're required by law to make money for their shareholders. On the other side, beside charity, we have a not-for-profit. Think your skating club or your hockey, soccer, right? So they take a little money, but it pays for field rentals and coaches and t-shirts for the kids. Nobody makes any money. It's all volunteer run. And then on the other side, beside corporate social responsibility, we have a social enterprise. On here it says social purpose business. And then on the not-for-profit side, we have a social enterprise. And then in there, we have cooperatives that encompass both of those. We'll come back. We'll go into this a little more depth, but just kind of gives you an idea. There's no single definition of social enterprise. It can be embedded throughout all of these models to a certain extent, but those two middle pieces are where we sit with social enterprise. Any questions? It is tiny writing. Yeah, it's all on the website because, again, I didn't want to PowerPoint you to death, so I just put it up on a website, sesw.ca. You can access it anywhere. If you have, emergency checklist, you can tweet me, email me. There's a chat room. You can talk to me. But this will be there. Any questions? These are awesome questions. And I don't even know what time we're at. Oh, 9:30, we're good. Any questions on definition? That doesn't exist, but we're trying to... We don't have social benefit corporation in Canada. We do in BC, but not in Ontario. So some places, we'll talk about B Corps later this morning with Rachel. Some places have social benefit corporation. We don't have that structure yet. So it makes things a little bit, that the lobbyist in me says, I don't know. Like, it's been promised since 2010. So there's a website you can go to in 2010 that says in 3 years we're going to have this. Well, here we are. And I am funded by the government of Ontario, who are wonderful people. And hopefully not tuning in. And so, yeah. I think because it's such a complicated legal structure, that they're struggling to get it all set together. What I know is that they will give 3 years warning so that every corporation in Ontario can switch to a social benefit corporation when that opportunity comes out. And then they have to prove it. They'll be challenged on that. So they have to prove their social return on investment. However, I don't know. We'll see how that goes. We'll see where we're at. I don't want to open my mouth and insert foot, right? All right. The next thing we have is operations and structures. I have this in super big, bold capital letters. It does not have to be a not-for-profit. Every time we talk to someone, one of our entrepreneurs, they say, I'm not a social enterprise, I'm for-profit. Totally cool. Okay. We encounter this a lot when people are building structures out. That, you have to be not-for-profit. We push 90% of our clients, maybe, to for-profit structure. Partly because, the questions we ask here are, who needs to make money? Right? So we sit down with a client, do you want to do good? Yeah, okay, this is great. Do you do good? And they say, yes, we do this, X, Y, Z. Okay, can you measure it? Yep, we put, we plant X number of trees per year and hire 12 people with barriers. Okay, perfect. Then we say, who needs to make the money? So then we have a couple of options. The entrepreneur will say, I need to make money, or they'll say the agency needs to make money. So if it's agency, okay, maybe not for profit. If the entrepreneur says, I need to make money, for profit. In this structure, okay, this is like really government-y policy. Do you need a break before we do this? Okay, this is my lecture on policy and regulation. Not-for-profit, because we don't have social benefit corporation, a not-for-profit's really restricted in how they earn revenue. So the entrepreneur cannot draw from profits. They can earn a wage, a fair wage, but can't draw profits from a not-for-profit. And also they can't sit on their own board of directors. So we ask, who needs to make money? How much power are you willing to give up? And who are you willing to give it to? Because not only can they not sit on their board of directors, they can't fill it with family and friends. They have to be at arm's length. So think about that. The power is that you can get a board of directors in that suddenly doesn't like your vision, and you're gone. So if it's something really intrinsic to the social entrepreneur, and you say, yeah, that's so cool, go set up a board who may not like you and is going to kick you out, then we run into that question. That's why I would a good 90% at least go to for-profit for us. For-profit's nimble, They can make decisions. They don't have to have a board. They should have community feedback if they're an enterprise, social enterprise, but up to them. A lot less government oversight. So when you become a not-for-profit, you're incorporated. You've got extra tax returns. You have more government looking over your shoulder. You cannot issue tax receipts. There's just so much more that you have to do. You have to register, you have to pay fees. However, there's the one piece. If you're working with a student who has student loan, or you're working with someone on any kind of social assistance, so that might be EI, that might be Ontario Works, that might be Ontario Disability, or they're receiving significant income from child support or spousal support, so they've got assistance of some kind. They need to be very cautious in how they form their on a social enterprise. If they form a for-profit social enterprise, even, we just recently had this happen, even if you're working on a donation-only basis to earn revenue for this really good community project you do, that becomes that person's income. And now that person has just lost her social support. In other cases, we've seen single parents who start a not-for-profit, but it isn't yet incorporated, and they get a small grant. Say a $5,000 grant, every penny goes into that awesome community program, and suddenly they lose their child tax credit or their student loan, or they lose child support. It's awful. And the problem is there's no way to say you can't get the government to believe you after it, because you've earned revenue. It's earned revenue, yes.
But wouldn't it be offset by expenses?
It's not no. Unfortunately, no.
They only consider revenue.
It has to be an incorporated business to allow for business expenses, or an incorporated not-for-profit.
But not a sole proprietorship.
No.
You can't have sole proprietors.
You can, just be very cautious. And sometimes people don't self-disclose that they're on assistance. And that's where we ran into this and found out after the fact. It is awful because someone's now lost their means of support, but yet they're doing something really good for the community. So that's a problem. In that case, I typically suggest people go to a not-for-profit status. If they're not really intending to make money, they want to just do community good, they need to be incorporated, then patience. So, oh my gosh, you've got a grant lined up. Until you have that number, don't take it. It's not worth the risk to their livelihood. So that's where structure can get complicated. So we have not-for-profit. Not-for-profit is not a charity. So not-for-profit structure is well, actually what we say is it's just a legal definition, doesn't mean that you can't make money. It's just restricted in how you do it. So we wouldn't be able to have a super successful entrepreneur making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. It would be difficult in a not-for-profit in the current structure. They cannot draw profit from their earnings though. However, on a for-profit, on a charity, I'll pop down here. Registered charity, entirely different. That's another government legal structure. You can write receipts for donations. You don't have to pay taxes. You can earn revenue. You can basically earn revenue doing anything if it's run by volunteers. But if it's attached to your mission, and you can hire staff and run Goodwill as a charity, run just like a normal business, but have to be mission-based. So there's a little bit more flexibility in there, but 2 years. And if you're not in one of these things up here, relief of poverty, advancement of education, advancement of religion, or the other purposes is pretty actually strict. You're looking at 18 months to 2 years to get it started, and in my experience, most people are denied the first time around, and it costs a lot of money. But if they have a really good, amazing charity, I met with a young man who works with disadvantaged immigrant women. And just really profound structure there. He has a great option to go to charity. He doesn't need to earn a whole ton of money, a fair wage, but not a gajillion dollars. And he meets sort of these classifications. But he has to wait because it's 18 months to 2 years. So if the urgency's there, then for-profit is kind of the way to go. For-profit, so they have an idea for a business. They come to you and they say, I want to open a lawn care business. Okay, fantastic. And they say, and I want to hire people with barriers. Okay. And I want to hire people who were previously incarcerated and have a record and can't get employed elsewhere. Okay, so how many people? And I want to hire everybody. Okay, so that's great. I'm pretty bubbly, so I say that's awesome. And then you're going to walk through, because they might have a different view on how much revenue they need to earn. And again, when you create social impact, you impact revenue. That's the piece of a for-profit social enterprise. So when you hire with people with barriers, you maybe not, but possibly are going to encounter some productivity, right? You may have less productivity, or you might have other issues, who knows? So looking at impact and revenue, they're kind of they go together with a social enterprise. Any questions? Again, we don't have social benefit corporation. So the legal environment, we recommend everybody talk to a lawyer where possible if they're getting into a sticky kind of structure. Any questions? We're good? Yeah, Sid.
Just pondering the B Corp.
Yes.
If they are federally incorporated,
Yes,
they could become a B Corp.
absolutely.
So they could operate in Ontario
Yes.
because of the federal.
Right, for-profit only.
For-profit only.
Yes. Yeah, so B Corporation, Rachel from Ellipsis Digital, they are the only B Corp in London. They're coming to talk to us, so she's coming, and will tell us more about B Corporation. And a B Corporation is a benefit corporation, so benefit or B Lab is a for-profit, and B Corp certification is a not-for-profit that certifies other businesses as having a score on these returns, on social returns on investment. So they can operate. They change their articles of incorporation to indicate that they have a social and environmental return on investment over a financial return on investment. Yeah.
Sorry, you briefly mentioned that there is some sort of equivalent in BC.
Yes. So there is a workaround that I've heard, and haven't tried it with any of my entrepreneurs. There's a social benefit corporation in BC, and I think New Brunswick now, somewhere on the East Coast. I've heard, haven't tried it, that you can register your business in BC as a social benefit corporation and operate in Ontario. And that allows you a different legal tax structure. It's cheaper than incorporating as a corporation, and your tax filings are different, but it protects your entrepreneur so that they have an incorporated status. So money would go to the corporation, doesn't impact them if they're, say, receiving student loan or child support. So the money goes into that corporation. I have not tried this. Please consult a lawyer if you're thinking of doing that. I'd hate for everyone to register in BC and I find out I'm wrong, because I haven't really looked into it. Yeah, and then I get the phone calls. Any other questions? All right. I have a bunch of links on here. There are other structures. Cooperatives. Co-ops, it's all rainbows and fun, and cooperatives are very cool structures, right? They are, I don't know a whole lot. I've been learning about co-ops and meeting with our cooperative guru here. Learning more about them because they are the original social enterprise. So we went to the Root Cellar for dinner here in London last night. And the Root Cellar is a worker cooperative. So, an amazing food. So all of those workers actually own a piece of the restaurant. They're employees, but they're also owners. Credit unions, probably a very classic example. Everyone's an owner in a credit union. You have a vote on how the organization goes forward. So if you have an entrepreneur that doesn't need to make a ton of money, is okay with giving up power, but doesn't quite fit not-for-profit, a cooperative, which can be for-profit or not-profit, cooperative might be the way to go. You have a collective, artist collective. They're actually really great. You might have 6 or 7 or 8 people. Maybe they'd be a great cooperative. Their social benefit corporation is the other. And then you will encounter people who are entities. So they are not incorporated, they don't have a bank account, they're operating, and I know this because I did this on a $250,000 a year budget as an entity. We were not registered in the social enterprise that I ran for a couple of years. Somehow we got money and we managed to run these huge programs, not being incorporated, just existing as a concept and working with other partners.
So who claimed the 250,000?
Goodwill, our partners. So we made friends. We made friends with a lot of people. If you have an entrepreneur that wants to do something, I really recommend this route. We make friends and give up 10% of your money, like for an admin fee, whatever the government granting agency allows, give that money up to your partner, and then they handle all the other stuff, like payroll. It was amazing. And taxes and auditors. It was beautiful. So that's what I would recommend sometimes. If someone wants to, say, sort through clothing, I'd say, you know what, maybe you should consider working with Goodwill. Oh, well, we've got a different idea. Yeah, you know what? Go talk to them. Go talk to them. And try and encourage those partnerships, because then it doesn't impact, again, if you're working with a student, it doesn't impact their income. And that's how we got to our partnerships, because I was a student and a single mom. So Goodwill, my mentors there were excellent to say, wait a minute, don't take this money. Any questions going? All right, we might take a little break. It is 9:49. We are heavy into the operations and structures. There's still more. It's really policy-based. I love policy. I appreciate not everybody does. So does anyone want to move away from policy for a minute? Or you're okay? You're good? Keep going? Okay. So in terms of the rest of the piece of policy and legislation around social enterprise, because we don't exist as anything, social enterprise is not recognized federally. I just had a blank. Yes, not recognized federally, but recognized provincially, but we don't have a corporate structure for it. So we're funded right now on this project through the Ministry of Economic Development and Growth to work with the One Network, the Ontario Network of Entrepreneurs. They're really into social enterprise because social enterprise has huge impact. I have stats because I love stats. So 10,000 social enterprises are in Ontario right now. 160,000 people employed by social enterprise in Ontario today, and 3.4 million customers served every year. It's a huge, huge industry. Because we don't have that definition, we're working in different ways. So you might not be aware you're working with a social enterprise. We're making this push to change policy to get us that structure, to protect our entrepreneurs so that when they do social return on investment, they're protected legislatively and in terms of their personal life. Yeah?
Is there any breakdown in those stats of which ones are the bolted on versus the baked in?
It's not really, because I would say that the social enterprise has been going since the 1800s. The real buzz of it, 2005 maybe, 2010. So they haven't quite caught up to that concept of what's baked in versus bolted on. Yeah.
So, recognizing that this is part fallacy,
Yes.
a lot of people believe that there's an inherent trade-off between profit and social good, and like to an extent there can be,
Yes.
hence why we need this certification.
Yes.
Within those numbers, has anyone done any research into where that trade-off looks like? So, for example, 160,000 people employed,
Right.
is that more or less than it would be on average if these 10,000 enterprises were just for profit, and same with profit generated and GDP and all that stuff?
We haven't, but we've got 2 researchers in the room, so just saying. That'd be great research.
But even what Morgan just said is wrong, because you said, oh, how many of those would otherwise be for profit? Lots of them are for profit. Okay.
Yeah, so if it was traditional business, would the stat be the same, or would it be higher, or would it be lower?
And maybe there's lots of organizations out there that could define themselves as social enterprises
Yes.
and just doing what they do because they want to do it that way.
We encounter that all the time. We're like, wait, you're a social enterprise. You're a registered charity. You haven't taken a single grant in 8 years. You're fully funded. You have a staff of 12, whatever. Wow, you're a social enterprise. They had no idea. I would say from a social enterprise perspective, I would like to know who is employed. How are they employed? So out of that 160,000, how many have barriers?
Yeah.
How many are youth at risk? How many are seniors? How many are ex-convicts? Yes?
I just wondered from that 10,000 social enterprises, did those people self-identify as social enterprises?
Yes. And so, again, there's that whole range of people that may be operating as a social enterprise and not aware. Also in this same, we have to acknowledge that out of that 10,000, there might be people saying they are, but they're not quite. They might give 2% of their profits or $1 of every sale to a charity and say, oh, I'm a social enterprise.
Where did that stack?
From the ministry. I did not dig too deeply into their sources, but I will. I'll do that on break. It's interesting. That's an interesting question about what would it look like for profit, like regular business, making donations, would the impact be the same? But then there's value. We recognize the social return on investment for having people put to work versus just giving money so that they can subsist. So there's another aspect to evaluating that business as we go forward. Very interesting researchers. Any other questions? It's cool. Good discussion. So I did put our vision is an Ontario filled with flourishing communities and businesses, all with missions of triple impact, which is triple bottom line is typically how you hear it, which is an environmental, social, and financial return on investment. The language is shifting to say triple impact. Return on investment is still a financial return. We want to acknowledge that sometimes the return is not necessarily financial. There's something else that could be there. Hard to measure, but worth measuring. I feel like I'm just yakking at you. Are you okay with me yakking at you? Okay, yeah. Fraser. Fraser's the bad kid, but he's sitting at the front. Normally he sits at the back, where I can't throw things at him, but today might be different. Yeah, duck. I'll give you warning. I'll kick you under the table before it goes flying.
It's because I can't hear you.
Yeah. I can get you one of those big ear horns. Yeah, that'd be awesome. So we should talk about corporate social responsibility. Sometimes when you get a structure, we'll have clients that'll come to us, or you might have clients that want to be a social enterprise, but they really are focused on revenue generation, okay, on all structures, and they want to do a program or a piece. That is corporate social responsibility. Still on that spectrum of social enterprise, but it would mean that their articles of incorporation say that they earn revenue as their primary goal. A social enterprise or socially responsible business has a mission-based business, whereas corporate social responsibility, it's about the bottom line still. However, they want to do this program. They're willing to give up a bit of revenue or time or efficiency to do this piece for the environment or the community. Absolutely great. If we could get every business having corporate social responsibility, that would be profound. Huge impact socially and environmentally. We'd love to move them into that baked-in model of social enterprise where we can. But that's a little bit tougher sell. So when we meet with clients, we're always thinking social enterprise. Well, we'll say, have you thought about hiring people with barriers? Have you thought about your hiring practices in general? Do you use local foods? What's your packaging look like? Right? They come to us maybe looking for funding, and they need to be a social enterprise. So they come and we work with them to say, what would be the biggest, greatest business model? We call it a blue sky session. Let's put on the board, and this does come from my business husband and his buddies, where they blue sky days, and they just relax and envision what the greatest opportunity for their business would be. A little bit different than how I do it. But we blue sky it. We say, what would be the greatest perfect, socially responsible and environmentally responsible business model you could ever do. I'll use the fritter shop as an example because Kelvin's the coolest guy ever. So he sells fritters, Dutch pastries. They use 70% local foods. He really wants to be more of a social enterprise. So we blue skied it with him. We said, what's the coolest? So all local foods, local flour, having an agency make the fillings, like YOU Enterprises here in London. Biodiesel powered delivery truck using reused fryer oil. How cool is that? Solar panels, changing the insulation, changing how the whole organization is powered and structured. Hiring, but worker involvement, worker ownership. We went through the whole thing. And then we said, okay, Kelvin, where are you now? And then we said, how do we get from here to that? It's called backcasting, rather than forecasting. So forecasting, you say, okay, you're going to make this much money this year, and then you're going to have $5,000 that you can put towards this to help reach your goal, 5-year goal. So backcasting says, let's put perfection on the board. How do we get from here to perfection? It's totally doable. I mean, for Kelvin, he works with Annette. He's so cool. I'm so glad she sent him our way. It was very doable. The forecasting was a 5-year plan. The backcasting, maybe 18 months. And we were able to walk away really excited about what his business, his social enterprise could look like. A huge piece of his social enterprise is local food and environmental packaging. We sometimes lose sight in the structure that environment is as important as social. So you can have a local foods business. We have another one here. He supports the Mennonite or Amish community, brings food baskets in, sells them like a CSA, community-supported agriculture. He is a social enterprise for the environment piece. So Kelvin, our fritter guy, moving to really 100% environmentally friendly packaging was like a key piece to his social enterprise. And he's someone who really wants to do good in the community. So we worked with him to figure out not just corporate social responsibility, he really wants to embed it into social enterprise. Yeah.
Is backcasting often more successful with businesses that are already established?
I think it's good anywhere along the chain. So if you didn't hear the question, is backcasting more successful with businesses who are established? I'm going to say no, that it's really cool to do at any stage. It's neat to do with people in idea stage because it gets them really excited. And you want to get them excited so they go out and talk to people. We work a little bit more on a lean startup versus business modeling versus business planning. So it is different than the traditional supports. We still encourage our entrepreneurs to go build out a business plan. So they're not exclusive, they work together. We approach it a different way. I didn't realize this, so I was referring people out to our business advisors in the community after getting them all excited and saying, yeah, go talk to people, go get clients, and sending them off to do a business plan. And me saying, you don't need a business plan? Oh, yeah, you do. Yes, you do. Sorry. So sorry to everybody that got entrepreneurs the first couple months. So backcasting, they get really excited. And then they can build have enough energy to go and build that business plan out, that business model. When they're already established, sometimes they're in a rut. It's a fine line between a groove and a rut, and they get a little bit stuck. And so backcasting gets them excited again. I love it. It's a really fun, pie in the sky, completely out there exercise, all about design thinking and envisioning success. We do another piece I'll talk about right at the end of this afternoon called the Flourishing Business Canvas, which is another piece of design thinking that we do. Even if you're traditional business advisors and you're maybe not into the woo, I'm not into the woo-woo at all. And sometimes design thinking falls into that. There's still some aspects that I find really useful and it's a really good activity to undertake. If you don't want to do that, we've got people you can send your people to. It's all right. I put a link on the website here for structures and options. What's the difference between a registered charity and a not-for-profit? And also this link, these are on Google Docs. should you have any troubles opening Google Docs, you can email me and let me know, and I'll send them to you in a PDF. This came from Susan Manwaring, who is the expert, I mean the ultimate expert in social enterprise that we have right now, pretty much in Canada. And she put together a nice chart that helps you look at scenarios, the advantages and the disadvantages, and if there's any notes, any comments that she has to make. And she does mention the structure and impacting entrepreneurs. So it's really thorough. I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but it's good. It's also very long. I also linked to the 230-page not-for-profit incorporator handbook. So if someone really wants to be a not-for-profit, they can read that. However, I didn't link it. There's a wizard. You don't have to read 250 pages. The government set up a wizard for you to walk you through and do your articles of incorporation. Really easy. I recommend that route, unless I like policy, but if you want to read 250 pages, you're more than welcome. She's got all of the hybrids here. Notes about BC. In BC they're called community contribution companies. I said social benefit corporation. That's the Ontario terminology. That's not here. They're called community contribution companies. Again, in theory, you can register as one of those and operate in Ontario. I haven't tried it. It says here that it was developed to allow social entrepreneurs to pursue social goals through their businesses while still generating a profit and providing investment opportunities to like-minded investors. So Nova Scotia developed one as well. Any questions on structure? You good? Are you dying? Policy? Okay, that's good. So it's all here. I didn't want to, like I said, we're turning out like a PowerPoint, but why don't we take a little break, stretch our legs, clear our heads, and then we'll come back and talk about social impact and theory of change. Again, another procedural thing. All right, we'll take a breather. We'll go for does anyone want to do a tour of Innovation Works? Yes? Let's do it. Okay, so I'll set up with Sienna, and we'll come back in about 30 minutes. Okay. Sorry, I didn't even think.
He just